until we have a policy, I don't want to get too much of ahead of myself, but I totally get it that we have to stay on this AI for us to be, super competitive, continue to be super competitive in the future, because our customers are going to start demanding, AI solutions. I'm hoping not to go that way with the human customer service. You call us, you get a real human being.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On this episode, we have Tom Raffio, who has been the president and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental since 1995. Under his leadership, the company has grown significantly, now administering dental benefits for over 1.1 million people in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Raffio's accomplishments include increasing the company's revenue from 57 million to over 500 million and expanding the workforce from about 50 people to around 200 employees. Some monumental accomplishments, Tom. I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. So let's start with some easy stuff, Tom. Give me a quick little Coles Notes on a little bit more on who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up with Delta.
That's a great question. So I was an English major at Harvard and graduated in 1978. And I was one of the last people to get a job right out of college. But I did land a job at John Hancock Insurance in Boston, and there they were a thriving company at the time, and I learned a lot of healthcare systems, health and dental. So cut my teeth there for 10 years, and then went over to Delta Dental of Mass, which is a sister company to the CEO of Northeast Delta Dental. And for 10 years, I also worked at Delta of Mass, and at that time, it was a startup company. So I got to really do all the things that an entrepreneur can do in terms of starting up a company and learn everything. And then based on those accomplishments, I was recruited to come up to New Hampshire, which is the headquarters of Northeast Delta Dental. And you're correct, we do handle Maine and Vermont as well. And the rest is kind of history. I have found that New Hampshire for me and Vermont and Maine, perfect for my skill set, because you can make an impact. If you think of it, there's only 3.2 million people or so in those three states combined, and we have 1.1 million of them under contract. So I get to know everybody, and we can make a lot of impact in the community. One of my favorite things is giving back to the community, and you can make a huge impact in New Hampshire, by doing that. And then my most recent significant accomplishment is we were one of the last states without a dental benefit for people on Medicaid, and after about 25 years of advocacy, we finally got that done through the legislature here, and we're administering that program. So now there are 90,000 other people. That's beyond the 1.1 million that finally can go to the dentist. Heretofore, they've just basically been going to the emergency room. So dental insurance sounds boring, but it's not. And I'm sure we'll get into this when you start asking some of your technology questions.
Yeah, that's a significant accomplishment. Just a number of significant accomplishments that the way that you have been able to connect with the community, identify their needs, and then look for solutions that work for everybody is a highly sought after skill. I wonder if you could kind of expand upon how you kind of cut your chops in that way. Like I get a sense that you are keen to recognizing opportunities. Is that true?
That's true. And one of the things I learned early on was the National Baldrige Performance Excellence, and without boring people, but it's a pretty rigorous total quality systems approach that eventually evolves into the National Baldrige Award. But if you understand that framework, you understand just what you said, how to be empathetic with your customers and your employees, and the importance of level 5 leadership, which is one of the categories in the Baldrige framework. So I cut my teeth on that, and it works. It also teaches you to take the long run on things, not always necessarily worry about short-term profitability. And a good example of that is most dental companies will pay for 2 oral health cleanings a year, but that's really not based on science. That started in the 50s and 60s when there was a commercial or a print ad that said, brush your teeth with Pepsodent and go to the dentist twice a year. So once we uncovered that that wasn't based on science, we acquired a software company called Previsor, which we install on our dentists who we have under contract. And you go in there, and when you're getting the cleaning, the hygienist asks a few questions, and then you may be entitled to a third or fourth cleaning per year based on your risk assessment score. So it's really differentiated ourselves, which is why, we retain 99% of our business, because basically half the population, like me, need 3 and 4 cleanings a year, and we pay for it. And it's very difficult for an employer to switch to another insurance company because they would be going back to the 2 cleanings a year, and that wouldn't be good for population health or employee health.
So this is a matter of you looking for ways to basically go above and beyond for the people that you want to serve
Correct.
in an attempt to make sure that you can continue to serve them.
Right, and be innovative, and again, you have to obviously listen to the customer. This was a great example, though, where people were looking to go to the 3rd or 4th time a year because many of them were doing it on their own and paying for it by themselves. So the fact that we uncovered this software company that basically facilitated that, it was a natural strategy because it really coincided with what people wanted to do. I mean, more and more people understand that you've got to take care of your teeth for good overall health. And again, for some of us, that means going 3 or 4 times a year to the dentist as opposed to 2. So there was a nice fit with technology and listening to the customer.
So one of the things that I like to do when it comes to marketing for companies that I work for is to map out the customer experience from the moment of discovery, where that point of discovery is, all the way to keeping them for a long period of time and making sure that I can serve them, or the company I'm working for can serve them in as many ways as possible. So I would really love to get from your perspective, just based on your level of success, how does that experience look like for the people that you guys are serving?
It's a great question. So we do a lot of surveying existing customers, hundreds of thousands of people, and the return rate is actually pretty good. And the questions are phrased so we get at anticipated needs, and then we review that, and then we try to tweak our product plan designs to reflect what we're hearing on the surveys. We do a plethora of that, and unlike other companies, maybe you do the survey and never hear from them. We then feed back to our customers and said, this is what we heard. These are the things we can do. These are the things that we can't do for these reasons. And people like that sort of plan, do, action, 360 return on their feedback. The other thing we do is we take some of our employers, basically in dental, you can buy it individually, but 90% of our business is dental through the employer. So we meet with major employers and get directly from the human resource VPs what their expectations are for their employees for their dental carrier. And that has been really helpful. In fact, that probably drive this acquisition of Previsor, because the major customers were saying, you know what, I think we want a more innovative plan design where it's not just the standard, 2 cleanings a year. So I think if you take advantage of feedback, you definitely improve your company. The other key program we have, it's called the Guarantee of Service Excellence. So we guarantee 7 aspects of our service, such as how fast we process claims and answer the phones. Generally, we're answering the phones with human beings in less than 30 seconds. So we have standards, and if we fail to meet those standards, we turn ourselves in, and we call them investments, but basically we give refunds, payments, to our customers if we fail to meet a service standard, and that gives us continuous improvement data because we don't necessarily want to make these payouts. So a good example of that is we're supposed to process 90% of our claims within 15 days. And about 10 or 15 years ago, we were having trouble achieving that. And that was because dentists were still sending in claims via paper. So once we saw that based on data, that we then got more and more of our dentists to submit claims electronically. And so now we have 70 or 80% of our claims are electronic. So there's much less paper, which means we can achieve that service guarantee.
So it sounds to me like a lot of your focus is on uh, creating feedback loops inside of your existing clientele, identifying opportunities for areas of improvement, and then executing on those improvements quickly.
Yeah, no, that's a great description. It's definitely the feedback loops. And the other part of it is that I know Drucker once said culture trumps strategy and everything else. I agree with it. Is creating a corporate culture where employees are empowered to make decisions on the fly and really delight the customer. So we try to hire people that have great customer service in their DNA. And so people want to delight the customer. So if you have a culture like that for your employees, that'll like, I always say this, if you pay attention to your employees, they in turn will pay attention to their, the customers. And then of course we involve them in the feedback loop because many of them sit on the committee that handles the service guarantee refunds. So they hear directly as well from the customers.
Empowering your team to be able to make their own decisions is a new way of a new style of like managing companies. I know that for the longest time, especially like in my early days in the workforce, it was a very task oriented management style where, hey, you go do XYZ, then come back to me for your next marching orders. And you'd get stuck in this space of just doing what you're told. And then that creates a lot of friction with the customers and inside of the culture of the company, and just leads to uh, a lot of negative outcomes that nobody is happy with. So it for you to foster an environment inside of your company that allows your employees to be able to make decisions, play an active role in growing the business or maintaining the customer base, I think is something very admirable. Is that something that you guys have always had, or have you kind of evolved into that space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I started in 95, when we, like you said earlier, we had whatever 50 employees, and it was a quiet company, good employees, but they didn't have the feedback loop, and they didn't have sort of the energy that you need. So we made a concerted effort. I hired at that point an iconic HR VP, and together we partnered on transforming the culture into a can-do culture, and also make it clear through example that we call it the atmosphere of blameless error, that if you're trying to delight the customer and you make a mistake, that's okay as long as we learn from it. And I think when employees saw that in action, then they became much more comfortable with making decisions where heretofore they might have wanted it to go up the food chain of management. We don't have a lot of layers of management, but obviously insurance is highly regulated, so we have certain overall guidelines, that we have. But I think we've got to the point where people know that they'll never be criticized for taking initiative. In fact, I want them to take an initiative. There's a famous Federal Express story where this was when they were the giant and next day stuff, where someone rented a helicopter to deliver a package at the top of a mountain or something. So we have an expression around here, which is rent a helicopter. Like if you need to satisfy a dentist or a customer, just rent the helicopter.
That's such an ambitious way of thinking about things. I remember it was a couple of years ago. I was at Disneyland, and I had my kid. I think he was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. We were just wandering around, and you know, at these places, things are very expensive. So
Right.
we were on a tight budget. We had some serious constraints, and my son wanted a popsicle or an ice cream or something from one of these kiosks, and the people that were running the kiosk could clearly see there was a dilemma in that my son wanted this thing and we were like, no, we can't, we got to wait till we get the dessert that comes with the meal that we already paid for or whatever. And so there was this little bit of a scuffle, and then uh one of the kiosk workers came over and brought my son the popsicle that he wanted or whatever it was. And before I even had a chance to like argue with him or contest this action, he goes, uh, "You've just been uh, a part of one of Disney's magical moments. This is on the house.
Wow.
Enjoy your stay." And like even now, I'm moved by the experience that I had there. But it's that um going above and beyond that makes such a difference to the people that you're serving. And I'm kind of seeing that in the picture you're painting for me and
Yeah,
how you got the atmosphere you've created.
that's exactly, we have the insurance version of what you described with Disney. And of course, we have a high degree of respect for Disney. We've done a lot of, benchmarking and, delighting the customer when they're not expecting it. And for example, on the service guarantee, they don't have to call in the guarantee. We turn ourselves in. And I can't tell you the number of times people say, oh my God, you gave me a check and I didn't ask for it. So that type of delighting the customer really changes. If you look at ratings, you know, good, excellent, superb. It really, to get to that highest level, I mean, a lot of companies are good, but to get to that next level is what you described. And I think for the most part, we have the insurance version of that Disney anecdote.
Yeah, and people talk about it, right? When your business
Oh
becomes
yeah,
remarkable, it's a very powerful engine to drive marketing and sales and fuel the business. I'm a huge proponent to the idea that if you do your job and you do the job well, it's inevitable that you'll be rewarded for that. And so your focus can only be on doing your job and doing it well. And I love that you guys have embodied that.
and and they know that you're trying to be impeccable. That we're human, so we make mistakes. They will give you the benefit of the doubt if you are transparent with that. So a great example of that is getting back to that 90% guarantee for claims turnaround. For one of our biggest customers, with the city of Manchester, New Hampshire, we achieved 89.9%, but we didn't round up to 90. We gave them the refund check, which was pretty significant, let's say $10,000. But then we had a customer for life because they knew they could trust us. That story made the rounds, and that's not why we did it, but it ultimately actually helped business. And we do other things. We have we have a soccer field out here in our building, next to our building, and we allow local teams to play on it. And more than once, I've heard, "Well, you weren't the lowest price, but I coached on your soccer field, or my kid played on your soccer field, so we're gonna renew with Northeast Delta Dental." So all of that authentic customer service and community outreach lends itself to a great reputation for customer service, and people want to do business with companies that are known to have good customer service and that are good to the community. And we do other things to make sure that people know that we're good to the environment and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and you have done an exceptional job of creating and nurturing a culture of people who all get the same message, who all understand that same thing. But I can't imagine it would be easy in the way of like that relationship management, understanding who you're talking to, the history that you have, and then again empowering whoever is talking to that person to have the right data. So I guess let's kind of shift gears here and look at what are some of the technological pieces that you guys are using, deploying right now to help you manage this from the bird's eye view.
Great question. But before I get into that specifically, we do a great deal of thinking about the onboarding of new employees, because as we add new employees, particularly since COVID, and some of them are working hybrid, I don't see them as often, got to make sure they understand the culture. So I've I've written 4 books. One had to do with our management during COVID, another one on leadership. So employees read that as part of orientation. Then I have something called Coffee with the Coach, where there's a random group of new employees and veteran employees, and we talk about the company vision and culture. And so we want to make sure, as I said earlier, that we're hiring people that get it and fully integrate. And we're multi-generational. We have someone in our mail roll. I only know this because she told me she's 81, and we have younger employees in their 20s, and they're all working together. So on the technology front, while we certainly have the best human service, we also understand that there is a customer segment out there that wants to check on their claim at midnight on the computer. So we also have a great deal of effort and investment in technology, and of course that in our business, in particular insurance, with a lot of HIPAA data, we spend literally millions of dollars to make sure that we're cyber safe. So we've never had, knock on wood, we've never had a breach, but we make all of those technology investments. Where we may be a little bit behind because we're kind of following the trends. When we have an AI and artificial intelligence policy, and we're getting into it, but we haven't fully deployed it. For example, some insurance companies, when you're reviewing claims, they now will have an AI look at the claim, and before they approve it or deny it, it will go to a human being. We don't go that step. We go directly to the human beings, but we are developing AI policy. We know that it's important. For example, the equivalent of ChatGPT, we know that there is, data concerns and so on and so forth. So one of our thoughts is we need to create an internal ChatGPT so that, employees are free to, marketing people, et cetera, are free to use that tool without worrying about, data security or copyright infringement, things like that. So we're probably not as further along on AI as some companies, but we understand it has to be prioritized, and it is part of our current business plan. We don't want to be bleeding edge, but we definitely know that for us to be successful, 5 years, we have to have a legitimate, sophisticated AI strategy.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, you find yourself caught, wielding a double-edged sword, because on one side of things, this is going to revolutionize the way that we conduct business. There's no doubt about technology being useful. However, on the other side, there's been many, many horror stories, and it's usually the pioneers or the ones that are on the front lines that get the bloodiest. And so I can totally understand the cautious approach to observing and working inside of that space and kind of developing what's going to be effective now and in the future, and even understanding the idea that this is the worst this technology is ever going to be, and it's still pretty good. I don't want to be like a doom and gloom guy, so on both sides I'd love to get your opinion. What do you think some of the challenges are when it comes to implementing something like this, and then we'll talk about what you think some of the benefits are after.
One of the challenges in using AI on the professional reviewer of claims, without boring the audience, you are obligated as a dental insurance company to randomly, and in some cases per cause, review claims to make sure that there's no fraud and make sure that the quality of care is, state of the art. So we do have a group of dentists that review a certain small percentage of claims. If we started to use AI as pre-screening, one of the dilemmas is the dentists in the field, the dentists who are actually doing the work, likely would lament or complain that you're using a computer to, look at an area. I mean, there's obviously dentistry is a science, but it's also an art. There are two ways to, some dentists might want to put a 3-surface amalgam in your tooth, and another dentist may want to do a crown. Both are correct. It's just depending on their schooling and, and what their opinion is. So one of the challenges, if we use it, it would definitely save on staff, but we might create a credibility gap with with our dentists, and we have a strong relationship with our dentists, and that's important because you've got to keep a network together, so that way you can retain your business, because businesses only want to deal with you if you have a good network of dentists. So that's one concern that I'm sort of wrestling with. And then all the other ways of using AI, we obviously do a lot of marketing pieces and social media, and I'm sure we can be more efficient in some of our marketing collateral materials, but we haven't fully embarked on an internal chat GPT. But I have one guy that's totally focusing on it, and every day when I walk by his office, he screams at me, "Tom, come here, I want to show you this." And so I know how powerful it is, but it's like, I'm not yet ready to deploy it. But like I said, I think the key is to make sure you have a policy that works. And in my case, I need my board of directors to approve it, and then go ahead and implement it. So again, as I said earlier, it is on our business plan top priority, but but it hasn't fully evolved yet. And some of the concerns, like working with a dentist, is why we're being cautious. I don't want to save, staffing costs, but then mess up the relationship with my participating dentists.
Yeah, that's a difficult line to walk, is how can we increase our efficiency and, help people do their job better, but also people still need to do these jobs for a number of reasons: accountability, credibility,
Right.
purpose, right? That's the culture, the purpose, the mission that you guys are on. So all of these things are really powerful. And I see how that cautious approach is going to be beneficial as you guys roll out whatever technologies you're currently exploring. What are some of the things that you're kind of excited about? What have you seen out there that's kind of floating around that kind of like piqued your interest?
Well, the power is amazing. Like I say, this gentleman, his name is Steve Collins. He calls me in his office, and he'll say, "What do you?" Yeah, I go, I don't have a lot of time for you. I'm making a speech tonight on, you know, dental health, or I'm making we do a lot of road race sponsorships. It's a long story, but that's part of our community engagement. I'm making a speech to a group of runners, and he'll go, "On what?" And I'll give him a few things, and then he does something magical, and then ChatGPT produces a speech that I actually could use, but I'm not. But yeah. So I mean, I think everything excites me. I just, again, until we have a policy, I don't want to get too much of ahead of myself. But I totally get it that we have to stay on this AI for us to be super competitive, continue to be super competitive in the future, because our customers are going to start demanding, AI solutions. I'm hoping not to go that way with the human customer service. You call us, you get a real human being. But I know I've called other companies and get an AI thing that gets me to a certain point, although it always seems to stumble when you finally get a human being. You repeat yourself, um, but I know all those things are out there, so we're gonna have to stay on top of it, because our customers are going to start expecting it. Our dentists may start expecting that when it comes to, instead of them submitting X-rays to validate a crown, that they'll want an AI solution. So I'm excited, a little scared, because we're not in the forefront of it. But the good news is the board's giving me the resources needed so we can continue to study it. And in my business, there are other sister Delta plans. We're separate companies, some of whom are a little further along than we are, and I'm able to get benchmark data from them, which has been helpful. So that's another thing, was in terms of the Baldrige Performance Excellence, is benchmarking and getting the best practices from other companies, whether it's AI or something else, so you're not, in effect, reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, that's it's a very trying area, but at the same time we kind of have to be involved in it, and so
Yep.
there's a challenge in and of itself. Tom, you've been very generous with your time and your wisdom, and you've shared some very enlightening insights here. To wrap things up, I'd love to get from you, if you could, What one piece of advice would you have for others that are in a similar position to you who are looking to grow their business, struggling with customers and customer acquisition or retention, and still playing around with technology? What would that one piece of advice be?
It gets back to corporate culture. Yeah, you need to have a team that understands the importance of the customer, and you need to treat those employees with respect, and that they understand your mission and your values. We have four values: communication, teamwork, quality, and ethics. And you want to make sure that everybody's on board, because you can't take every situation that requires an empowered employee to make the right decision. You can't give them a manual on that. But if they have that in their DNA, you'll be really successful, because as I said earlier, culture trumps everything else, and customers want to work with companies that they know are good to their employees, and in turn that they're good to the community. So work that. Take a look at the Baldrige Performance Excellence Framework, Category 1, and that'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
Sound advice. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, Tom, to pick your brain or maybe work with you, how would one go about doing that?
I'm very accessible. That's what I'm known for. So my direct number is area code 603-223-1300. That's 603-223-1300. It sounds like a switchboard, but it's not. You'll either get me live or voicemail, and I'll call you right back. I have my own personal guarantee to get back to people within 24 hours. Or email my name, TOMRAFFIO as in Olive, at nedelta.com. And I'm equally proficient about getting back to people's email. I'm not perfect, but I'm happy to chat with anybody on this, and also learn from you as well.
Excellent. I'll make sure to link to that in all the show notes. If you want to get in touch with me or my team, it's nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next.